The city of Jericho stood proud, ancient, defiant, and seemingly untouchable. Its walls were thick enough to silence any threat. Its gates sealed tight at nightfall. Guards marched. Torches burned. The people within trusted in stone and sword. To outsiders, Jericho was a fortress. To Israelites, it was a final obstacle. But hidden behind those unshakable walls lived a woman. Rahab, not a princess, not a prophetess, just a woman with a past that echoed in whispers. A name spoken with sideways glances and quiet judgment. Yet from her rooftop, a place where secrets dried in the sun and prayers drifted into the sky, she watched the horizon. And somehow, she knew destiny was coming. Not with armies, not with chariots, but with purpose. Rahab, the outcast, was about to become the key to a divine invasion. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the sandstone walls of Jericho, two strangers appeared at Rahab's door. Foreigners, dust-covered, eyes darting. They didn't speak like her people. They didn't move like locals. They were men on a mission, spies from the encamped army of Israel, sent to survey the city before its fall. They carried no weapons, only resolve, and every breath they drew behind enemy walls was laced with danger. One slip up, and death would be swift. Rahab's eyes narrowed. She had seen many men come and go, but these weren't buyers or drifters. These were messengers of something bigger. You don't belong here, but I won't turn you in. Her voice trembled, not from fear, but decision. Because in that moment, without counsel, without certainty, Rahab made a choice that defied logic and loyalty. She ushered the men in, quickly, quietly, just before the king's soldiers came knocking. She hid them under stalks of flax on her rooftop, not knowing if they'd be found, not knowing if she'd be executed. Was it foolish? Brave? Suicidal? Maybe. But when fear and faith collide, something divine begins to stir. Word traveled like wildfire through the narrow, torchlit streets of Jericho. Foreign spies were in the city, men of Israel, bold enough to sneak behind fortified walls. It didn't take long for whispers to reach the palace. The king of Jericho, stern, calculating, rose from his seat. Search every home, every alley, especially the house of that woman. Rahab. Torches flared. Boots thundered. Swords were unsheathed. The city, once hushed in desert silence, became a chaos of metal and suspicion. Soldiers banged on door after door, shouting names, barking orders. Steel clashed against wood. Women screamed. Children cried. And then, they reached her. Inside Rahab's home, the air was thick with fear. But upstairs, beneath bundles of drying flax, the two spies lay motionless. Rahab stood by the door, back straight, but breath shaky. The guards stormed in, eyes sharp and restless. They searched every shadow. Every creaking floorboard echoed like thunder in her chest. Her heart pounded like war drums. Her palms were damp with sweat. Every second dragged like eternity. Rahab whispered to herself, "Please, let this God of yours be real. Let him see me. Let him spare me." In that moment, she wasn't just hiding spies. She was sheltering faith, betting everything on a God she'd only heard about. And heaven was watching. The soldiers were gone, but the silence they left behind was deafening. Rahab waited until the last torchlight vanished down the street. Then, she climbed to the rooftop, slowly, deliberately. The air was cool, but her palms still trembled. The two men, the spies, sat up, eyes wide with tension. She didn't hesitate. She didn't flinch. With Rahab's eyes burning in belief, she said, "We've heard what your God did. The Red Sea, the Egyptians. The rumors, they're true, aren't they? Everyone in this city, soldiers, merchants, priests, we're all terrified. The fear of your God has melted our hearts." The spies glanced at one another, stunned. This was no ordinary woman. "I believe in your God. When your people come, and I know they will, spare me. Not just me, my mother, my father, my brothers and sisters. All that I have. Spare us." She didn't ask for gold. She didn't ask for a place among Israel's warriors. She didn't ask to be rescued that night. She asked for something deeper, more eternal. She asked for mercy, and heaven listened. The wind rustled the stalks of flax on the rooftop. Dust swirled as dawn threatened the horizon. The spies stood, preparing to leave through a hole in the city wall. But before they disappeared into the shadows, they turned to her. One last instruction, one final bond. Take this cord. Scarlet. He placed the thick, red rope into her hand. Rough, coarse, unmistakable. Hang it from this window, the same one we escaped from. When our army comes, every home will fall, but the one marked by this cord, your home, will stand. They looked her in the eye, a pact sealed not by parchment or ink, but by trust, a thread of salvation, a covenant in crimson, a mark not of shame, but of surrender. The moment they left, Rahab didn't sit back. She didn't wait to see how things played out. She said to herself, I believe, so I obey. She ran to the window. Her hands moved fast, no trembling now. With a single motion, she tied the scarlet cord to the frame. It dangled against the stone like a lifeline, a silent declaration that says, this house belongs to the God of Israel. She didn't delay. She didn't negotiate. She didn't second guess. She acted, because real faith doesn't wait for perfect timing. It moves immediately, and Rahab's faith was nothing short of daring. Days blurred into nights, and nights bled into more days. The city of Jericho roared back to life. Merchants reopened their stalls. Children laughed in the streets. Guards resumed their patrols atop the great walls. It was as if nothing had happened, as if spies hadn't slipped through the cracks, as if judgment wasn't inching closer with every sunrise. But Rahab didn't move with the city. She waited, not with idle hands, but with eyes fixed on the horizon. The scarlet cord swayed gently in the breeze, a symbol to some, a warning to others. But to her, it was a lifeline. Each knock on the door made her flinch. Each horn in the distance made her pulse race. Had they forgotten her? Had God? Faith isn't always loud. Sometimes, it looks like waiting when everything in you wants to run. She kept her family close, told them to stay inside, no matter what. The promise still stands. We're marked. We're remembered. We're covered. And so she watched, from behind the crimson thread that hung like prophecy. While the city carried on, Rahab stood still, anchored in a promise. From strangers, and from a God she had only just begun to trust. Then it came, a distant rumble at first, like thunder with no storm. Boots striking the earth in rhythm. Voices lifted in silence. Trumpets raised, not to entertain, but to declare war without a sword. Jericho watched in disbelief. Day after day, just marching. No battering rams. No ladders. Just Israelites circling like time itself was unraveling around the city. And then the seventh day, they came again. But this time, they marched 7 times. Once, twice, 3 times. The rhythm intensified. Heaven and earth holding their breath. And then, trumpets. Not music. Not melody. A sound that shattered the very sky. The ground trembled. The stones cried out. Jericho's proud walls, built by kings in sweat and fear, crumbled like dust beneath divine breath. It wasn't an earthquake. It was a reckoning. Dust filled the air. Screams. Chaos. Collapse. But in the midst of destruction, one house still stood. A fragile thing by comparison. Small, unassuming, clinging to the edge of the wall. And yet untouched. The scarlet cord still hung from the window. Still swaying. Still declaring, this one is mine. The walls of Jericho fell, stone by stone, history crumbling like dry leaves. But Rahab's home stood still, marked, spared, chosen, remembered. Rahab didn't just survive the fall. She walked out of Jericho's rubble with her head held high, not as a traitor, but as a woman transformed. Not condemned, but chosen. Israel didn't just spare her. They welcomed her into their people, into their promise, into their story. She married a man named Salmon, an Israelite of noble lineage. Together, they raised a son, Boaz, the same Boaz who would one day marry Ruth, starting a royal line that would change the world. Rahab became the great-great-grandmother of King David, Israel's greatest king. Her name? Etched not in the rubble of Jericho, but in the royal bloodline of Jesus Christ. A woman once dismissed, called by her shame, now forever remembered by her faith. No longer Rahab the harlot, just Rahab, redeemed. Because when God rewrites your story, He doesn't edit the past. He redeems it. You may feel like your story is too messy, too broken, too stained to be used. Like the choices you made, the pain you carry, the labels they gave you, disqualify you from God's plan. But Rahab's story whispers to every scarred soul, you are not disqualified. She wasn't a priest. She wasn't perfect. She wasn't even from Israel. She was a woman with a past, and a future only God could see. God doesn't erase your past. He redeems it. He rewrites it. He reclaims it. And then, He uses the unlikely to do the unbelievable. So if you've ever felt unseen, unworthy, or too far gone, remember Rahab. Because when grace finds your window, all it takes is a scarlet cord and a yes. If this story stirred something in you, don't scroll past it. There's more where that came from. More redemption, more faith, more proof that God still writes with broken pencils. So hit subscribe, tap the bell, and join us every week as we uncover the Bible's unscripted, unfiltered truth.